The 2023 Prius marks the arrival of the 5th generation Prius. It's the most fuel-efficient Prius ever. I'm talking up to 57 miles per gallon combined. It's a sportier car with larger wheels and more modern interior. And that's a welcome change considering the previous generation, which started with the 2016 model, which faced some controversy about its looks. Some people saying the last generation was controversial, regrettable, or even hideous. But Toyota's 2023 Prius is a different story. The silhouette is decidedly more sleek. The nose is much lower and the hood rises into a windshield at almost the same angle. So there's uninterrupted visual continuity there, and frankly it's more sci-fi eye candy than the last generation was. This design makes the Prius more aerodynamic than the previous model. The split rear window, which has been a Prius hallmark for 3 generations, doesn't exist in the new 2023 Prius. And the rear door handle is hidden in the roof pillar trim. You also have available lightweight 19-inch aluminum alloy wheels that were specifically designed for the Prius. And you'll find slim LED headlights and a light bar on the rear between the taillights. The 2023 Prius comes as a hybrid or plug-in hybrid, which is called Prius Prime. Inside the hybrid, you'll find 2-liter inline-4 that's larger than last year's engine. There are also 2 motor generators with higher output ratings, but the lithium-ion battery in the hybrid has a lower capacity of 0.9 kilowatt hours. On-demand all-wheel drive is available as an option on all 3 trim levels, which adds more than 100 pounds to overall weight. This hybrid delivers up to 196 horsepower. That's 60% more horses than last year's models. Last year's model only had 121. Toyota also improved the all-wheel drive system so it can now operate at all speeds instead of cutting out above 43 miles an hour. Acceleration-wise, you can go 0 to 60 miles an hour in 7.2 seconds for the base model, or 7 seconds with the optional on-demand all-wheel drive. That's around 2.5 seconds faster than the previous generation's 9.8 seconds. Toyota also improved other aspects of the Prius in this new model. For example, you'll see less noise and vibration in the powertrain and tires. Even if you're accelerating really hard, the new Prius sounds smoother than before. Toyota also brought in better brakes for the new Prius. It's firmer and has less of the typical squishiness you often find with regenerative braking systems. Also, the infotainment cluster is a little more mainstream. It's now conveniently located in front of the driver instead of in the center of the dash. In the lower trims, you get an 8-inch touchscreen in the center stack. And in the upper trims, you get a 12.3-inch touchscreen. Both the lower and upper trim touchscreens use the latest Toyota audio multimedia system. It's also more engaging to drive. I'm talking about improved seating position, low center of gravity, added steering feel, and better overall experience behind the wheel compared to previous models. When it comes to safety, the 2023 Prius comes standard with the latest 3.0 version of Toyota Safety Sense. Pretty much, it's a bundle of advanced driver assist system. I'm talking about features like automatic high beams, adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, road sign detection, and active lane control. On top of that, blind spot monitors with rear cross-traffic alerts also come standard. Here's the interesting thing. Despite the positive press around the new design and changes, believe it or not, Toyota has relatively low expectations for the Prius. It just doesn't expect much sales growth. Toyota U.S. President of Marketing, Lisa Matarazzo, said that Toyota is expecting annual sales of around 35,000 units for the standard Prius. I'm talking about the non-prime version. That's more than in 2021, but just barely. In 2021, Toyota sold almost 34,000 Prius hybrids. And bear in mind, that was during the middle of the global supply chain shortage, which you're still going through. To put that into perspective, back in 2012 and 2013, the Prius saw sales of over 230,000 units. So why the huge gap? Well, the thing is, Toyota has more hybrids and EV options across its lineup today compared to 10 years ago. In other words, consumers have more options to choose from. A few years ago, if you were looking for a fuel-efficient Toyota hybrid, your main choices were the Camry or the Prius. That was it. Today, you can choose a RAV4 hybrid, RAV4 Prime, standard Prius, Prius Prime, hybrid Tundra, or the all-electric BZ4X. Not to mention competitors who are also offering non-gas options. Toyota believes that it ultimately is in the market's hands of what people will buy. One of the Prius's competitors is the Honda Insight. The Insight was one of Honda's first hybrids. It debuted in 1999, but never saw the level of success that the Prius achieved. But it sold enough for Honda to continue churning it out for its 3 generations. Here's the thing, Honda's killing it. You won't see a 2023 Honda Insight. The 2022 model year was the last year of its life. Anyway, if you're wondering how the 2023 Prius stacks up compared to the last year Honda Insight 2022, well, the Insight outputs less horsepower. It outputs 151 horsepower as opposed to Prius's 191. So, the 2023 Prius offers more power and faster acceleration. The Insight is also less fuel efficient than the Prius. The Insight comes with a EPA estimated fuel efficiency of 55 miles per gallon in the city and 49 on the highway. The 2023 Prius has an EPA estimated 57 miles per gallon in the city and 56 miles per gallon on the highway. But let's talk about price. The base trim is the LE that starts at $27,450. There are 6 different trims, the highest being the limited all-wheel drive, which starts at just under $36,000. Before you jump and get a 2023 Prius, there are a few cons you might want to consider. With everything, there's always a trade-off. For example, remember how I mentioned the new and sleek redesign? Yes, it's more attractive, but it comes at a cost. The problem is, because of this car's lower roof line, you now have a lot less headroom than before. If you're a short person, that might not be a problem. But if you're more on the taller side, well, you know the roof is so low, it can make it difficult to get in and out of the front seats. For the rear seat, if you're over about 5'10", it'll probably be less comfortable than you expect. There's also a question about cargo space. Again, because of the redesign, the 2023 Prius has a lot of cargo capacity, around 7 cubic feet of it. So now you're left with just 20.3 cubic feet of storage behind the rear seats. Of course, you can increase cargo space if you fold down the back seats, but then you'll need to sacrifice passenger space, so just be aware of that. Also, if you peek inside, there's good news and bad. The good news is the interior finish and materials haven't gotten any worse than the previous Prius models. But then again, it hasn't gotten any better either. Contrast that with typical redesigns done by other car makers, which usually include a major upgrade or design change to both the exterior and the interior. True, a Prius isn't anywhere near as luxurious as a Lexus, but even with affordable models today, in any new generation, you expect to see improvements in soft touch surfaces and material quality. But in this particular area, sadly, the 2023 Prius falls behind the competitors. The new Prius also has a problem with rear visibility. Reason is because Toyota retired the horizontally split rear window in the 2023 model. Now this feature's been a Toyota Prius trademark for years. You'd hope that visibility would improve because of this change, but actually, the single pane remains on the small side and it creates its own type of visibility issues. Toyota's aware of the problem, and that's why the top limited trims come available with the new rear view camera mirror to address this. On top of that, the deep dash, deeply angled windshield, and thick front pillars still make forward visibility more difficult than it should be. Most of you know I like Toyota's brand. Historically, Toyota has valued form over function. And when it comes to the Prius, previous Prius models stood out because they were unlike other aggressive cars on the market. With the Prius, there's a bare minimum you expect. But with the 2023 model, Toyota explained that styling took priority in the redesign for the 2023 Prius. In fact, it used the adjective aggressive a few times to describe the car's new look, and it shows. The car's prettier than before, yes, and it shines in many areas for sure. But for some of the basic things, well, they kind of fell short. Choosing a car model is a very personal choice. It has to meet your personal needs. So if you're not fully sold on the 2023 Prius already, you'll probably wonder if it'll be better to hold off and wait a year until the 2024 or even the 2025 models come out. So what can we expect for the 2024 or 2025 Prius? Will we finally see an all-electric Prius? There's no news on whether that'll be an option in the future yet, but no doubt we'll get clarity in the months to come, especially with Toyota transitioning to their new CEO. For now, there's also the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, or the Prime option, of course. It's thousands of dollars cheaper than many other battery electrics on the market. Because it does produce a basic engine sound, the Toyota Prius PHEV reduces the risk of an accident compared to battery electric EVs that lack sound or have really low sounds. In other words, pedestrians and cyclists can hear the car rather than be caught by surprise. Now with the Prius Prime, you can charge at both gas and electric stations. So you have that versatility and added option compared to a battery electric. If you happen to run out of battery, as long as you still have some gas in the tank, you can switch over to fuel. By the way, in a typical EV, the battery power is significantly diminishing from freezing temperatures. But in a Prius Prime, if you're traveling in the cold, you have the option to switch to the combustion engine. The all-new 2024 Grand Highlander. We'll see its highs and lows and how it stacks up against the regular Highlander. So Sequoia, and other competing crossovers. The regular Highlander right now sits a tad smaller than the Hyundai Palisade or Chevy Traverse. But when you look at the Grand Highlander, well, the name says it all. Right off the bat, the Grand Highlander is bigger than the regular Highlander. It's also boxier. I'm talking about 16 centimeters more in length, 5 centimeters more in width. In fact, the SUV is nearly the size of the Land Rover Discovery S. It's also taller than the 2023 Hyundai Palisade. Funny enough, apparently Toyota thought it should be even bigger. That said, the Grand Highlander is smaller than the Toyota Sequoia. With larger dimensions, you also get more cabin space. It's an 8-seater like the regular Highlander, but here's the difference. With the regular Highlander, there's been complaints that the third row is too tight for most adults. Actually, many crossovers face the same dilemma. I'm talking about crossovers with third rows that are so cramped, it's virtually useless for adults. You can only put kids in them. I call them sham rows or token rows. They exist just for bragging rights, but otherwise have little use or value. Anyway, with the Grand Highlander, it's a whole different story. The third row is now adult size. Personally, I predict that soon Toyota may nix the third row in the regular Highlander. I say this because just look at what happened with the 2023 Lexus RX. Toyota nixed the third row altogether. Now it's a two-row affair. Or consider the 2024 BMW X5, which gives hint that the third row may be a goner. Honestly, I doubt consumers will miss these cramped rows. If anything, if Toyota were to nix the third row in the regular Highlander, it would move buyers to ladder up to the Grand Highlander. Anyway, that's just my personal prediction. But let's see what happens. Another gripe that many consumers have with the regular Highlander is cargo space. It's nothing spectacular, only 16 cubic feet of space behind the third row, which is small for its class. But with the Grand Highlander, you get an additional 13.2 cubic feet. I'm talking enough space to put 7 carry-ons behind the third row. To put that in perspective, that's more cargo space than even the Chevy Traverse, which is currently one of the largest crossovers out there and can fit 6 carry-ons. So you can see the Grand Highlander beats the competition here. The Grand Highlander will be built on the same platform that you find in the regular Highlander today. I'm referring to the Toyota TNGA-K platform, which is the modular structure that underpins unibody vehicles in Toyota crossovers and SUVs. Basically, it's built to maximize passenger and cargo space and on-the-road comfort. It's different from the body-on-frame DAF platform that you find in the Toyota Sequoia, which prioritizes towing capability, for example. As far as powertrain, many midsize crossovers have 6 cylinders. You see the 3.6 V6 in Grand Cherokee L with 290 horsepower. You have the option for a 5.7-liter V8 for 357 horsepower. The latest 2023 Hyundai Palisade and Kia Telluride both have the 3.8 V6 engine that outputs 291 horsepower. And that's for the Palisade's 5 trim levels and the Telluride's 10 trims. The Grand Highlander, on the other hand, doesn't have a V6 option. It offers 3 other powertrain options. You have the same 2.4-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine that we see in the regular Highlander, as well as the same 2.5-liter hybrid variant. The hybrid gets you 34 miles a gallon for combined city and highway driving. But now, there'll also be the Hybrid Max option, which is all-wheel drive. We're talking 363 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, and it can sprint from 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds, making it one of the fastest crossovers out there. The Grand Highlander has a maximum towing capacity of up to 5,000 pounds. That's less than the Kia Telluride, which can handle 5,500. Of course, the Grand Cherokee L blows them out of the water because it can tow up to 7,200 pounds. As far as trim levels are concerned, the Grand Highlander is due to come in 3 levels: XLE, Limited, and Platinum, which comes with a 360-degree camera system. By the way, the Grand Highlander is supposed to be one of the most decked out and loaded Toyotas out there. I'm talking a huge panoramic roof, digital rearview mirror, and that's just the beginning. You notice it in the smaller things too. For example, you get 7 USB-C charge ports, which is 2 more USB ports than in the standard version. There's no official news yet about how much the Grand Highlander will be, but consider this. Right now, the average new car is around $50,000 in the United States. And car makers have been prioritizing higher-end models over entry-level ones because of ongoing supply chain problems. Also, consider the fact that the MSRP for the 2023 regular Highlander starts over $36,000. To give you a better idea, the average price the consumers paid for the current Highlander was a bit under $47,000 for the gas version and nearly $49,000 for the hybrid. The 2023 Sequoia has a base price of $58,000. So my guess is that the Grand Highlander will price somewhere near the 48 to low 50s. For now, what we do know is that the vehicle is due to be available this very summer. Anyway, the Grand Highlander will be built here in the States in Indiana. It's the same plant where Toyota builds the regular Highlander and also the Sienna minivan. Obviously, this means it will displace some of that production volume. I say Toyota's betting more on this Grand Highlander. The three-row midsize crossover segment is really heating up. In 2018, there were 12 different nameplates. The year 2020 saw new incumbents, like the Hyundai Palisade and Kia Telluride. And this year, we have 16 nameplates, so the segment is expanding. Actually, for several years now. Mid-size crossovers have been drawing consumers from other segments. Take minivans, for example. They started to look outdated as crossovers became more hip. Here's the funny thing. In terms of comfort and interior space, everyone wants a minivan. The problem is, no one wants to admit it. Otherwise, they'll look uncool. I'll tell you, I know that coolness sells. Just look at how crossovers drew all those consumers who normally drove sedans. And when you see owners of crossovers who never use a third row, those are the folks who likely have owned sedans previously. Anyway, about 50% of the American car market's already switched from sedans and wagons to SUVs. Think about the owner of a Honda Civic who switched to a Honda CR-V. He just got 3 more inches in width. Or consider the owner of a CR-V who upgraded to a Honda Pilot. He got 5 inches more. Now you may think a few inches is nothing, but those few inches are now causing a new phenomenon. Our cars are getting too big for our parking spaces. Ever notice how parking spaces and parking garages can be rather tight? It turns out that the changes to parking space standards hasn't kept up with the fattening of American cars. So, you know how buildings are designed by an architect? Well, parking garages are designed by parking consultants. There's no uniform law that mandates all parking spaces. But there are standards, and they use formulas to calculate and design. Most parking spaces are between 8 feet 6 inches and up to 10 feet wide. But the most common size is 9 feet. But typically, parking spots outside office buildings oftentimes are half a foot narrower, or 8 feet 6 inches wide. Anyway, the parking space standards have changed very little over recent years, whereas vehicle designs have changed much more rapidly. On top of that, sales of said large vehicles have also soared. It's like a race. Let's give you an example. Let's say you own a parking garage with 700 parking stalls. If half the cars in the parking garage are now 4 inches wider than previous cars owned by the same drivers, that's a total of 233 extra feet in car width. That's the distance from the goal line to the opponent's 23-yard line of football field. Imagine needing to accommodate that extra space. It can get expensive. To build an open surface lot can cost about $7,500 for each parking stall. Parking garage that's above ground can cost $40,000 per stall, whereas an underground parking in a city can easily rack up to $200,000 per stall. At the end of the day, no one loves a tight parking spot. We always want a bigger parking space. Sadly, even a few inches makes a difference whether a parking garage or a lot makes profit or loss. That's why parking consultants look at every inch of their design to maximize every possible space. Anyway, the next time you're parked in a narrow stall, blame it on American cars getting bigger. Now, if you're wondering why American cars are getting bigger, here's the thing about America. We love big cars. Actually, large American cars are nothing new. Been that way pretty much since after World War II up to now. And it's not just about cars. It's a mentality and lifestyle. In America, we go big or we go home. And we go home to big houses. The reality is things seem normal for us are considered gigantic to people who live outside the U.S. Think about our houses. Costco, Super Walmart, huge shopping malls, supersized meals, and like it or not, we have some very large people here too. That's why it comes as no surprise that the best 3 selling vehicles in the States last year were all large trucks. I'm talking about the Ford F-Series, Chevy Silverado, and Ram trucks. Among the top best sellers are also SUVs and crossovers, and this trend continues. Here's the thing, our streets are wide, our highways have multiple lanes. I'm not just talking about 2 or 3 lanes here, just look at Texas. Well, everything's big in Texas, I know, because I used to live there. There's the Katy Freeway, which spans not 3, not 4, not even 5 lanes or 6, but 26 lanes in parts. If the world's the widest highway, you might ask yourself, why on earth do we need a highway with 26 lanes? But there it is. Is it a bragging right or an embarrassment? You be the judge. It's like a cycle. Having large streets and highways facilitates and enables us to have large cars. Unless you live in New York City, most American city streets are comfortable and spacious. They're not as narrow as tight as European and Asian city streets. Also, the price of gasoline in the United States is relatively lower than in the rest of the world. So less Americans are concerned with fuel efficiency than Europeans and Asians, for example. That's why we're nonchalant about large gas guzzlers. There's also our American history. The U.S. was founded on the idea of freedom. Our ancestors were pioneers on a big, wild frontier. I'm talking about open land and space. This also influenced our culture of individualism. We don't like being told what to do. We like our freedom of choice. That's why we're less bothered by large gas guzzling pickup pickup trucks and SUVs, even though they release more carbon emissions. Contrast that with Europe, for example. They don't mind tighter government regulations to protect the environment. Anyway, cars in America are getting bigger, and as we've been told, a trend that continues. And with Toyota fattening up the regular Highlander to create the Grand Highlander, well, that just fits right in. But now you tell me, what do you think about the Grand Highlander? Do you think this will cause future midsize crossovers to get bigger? Please share by commenting below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for your support.